Hello friends, you're the Lonesome Gamer and I'm still playing Andean Abyss. And well, maybe this is my last video. There are not so many cards, oops, a little shaky. There are not that many cards left here. So somewhere here we find the last propaganda card. Might be the last one then. And while basically during the whole game my victory didn't seem to be in danger, it's not that clear now. If the government finds a way to get police in these departments, then I actually could lose that game, because then I could lose these passive opposition points and active opposition. This would be altogether 6 points that I would lose. And then I don't fulfill my up here my victory requirements, and it is easily possible that the victory margin then is also not good enough to win. But we will see about that. The cartels are doing not bad. They need to place 4 more bases, then they would win. AUC is also doing good. If they manage to place their 2 bases and destroy another one of mine, I'm in trouble. But okay, I mean, I can also play. So let's see. This is the NSPD. And the first player is here the AUC. So let's see if they play this card. Yes, they will. NSPD 18. That is card number 18. In a departure from the more restrictive war on drugs, the U.S. Bush administration's 2002 National Security Presidential Directive 18, supporting democracy in Colombia, called on the State Department to implement a new U.S. political military plan in direct support of Colombian national security strategy. The Bush administration had linked the counter-narcotics fight to the war on terror, and would pursue not only cartels but the FARC and the AUC directly. Okay, so this says now US focused on Mid-East and South Asia. So this is this alternate timeline. And the government resources -6, subtract a die roll from 8. So this is now at 48, and then we gotta subtract a die roll, and that's a 5. That's a little painful, but okay. 8 is only 9. So that was the AUC event, and now it's me, and I can do now an operation. I'm not absolutely sure what to do. I might do some terror actions. For example, here, Choco Cordoba, Guaviare, and maybe even here in Huila Tolima. Although I'm not sure if this is such a great idea. I could also march try to regain control over this area here. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do some terror operations now. Let's start here, then another one here, and then we do a few in the cities here and here, and then I'll do one here. Okay, so I have to pay $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 for that. So I'm at 24. Gotta activate guerrillas. 1. There's another terror marker here, and that gives me then active opposition. So I gain another victory point here. And we can do the same thing here. And that gives me then 2 victory points. Okay. And I will do the other ones off camera. Okay, actually I decided not to do it in the cities. I wanted to do it in the cities because I thought I could kidnap, could do a kidnap action there and this way regain some of these $5. But now I realized that the FARC guerrillas have to exceed the police, which is not the case in the cities. So I don't do that here, and I only did that in the departments, and that brought me back now to 32 influence. Okay, that's the end of that turn then. Okay, and now it's the government. And they will now do this, Ospina and Mora, and this is now another government capability. It is not that strong, simply because it's pretty much at the end of the game. So, coin experts take charge. Sweep costs 1 resource per space. That's number 2. Senior Army Commanders Carlos Ospina Ovalle e Jorge Mora Rangel collaborated intimately, Ospina fathering a sound counterinsurgent strategy from his study of captured FARC documents, and Mora ensuring its practical implementation. Okay, so that was the event then. And then it's the cartels. And they will rally once again. And once again they will rally in a place where they can cultivate afterward. So that would be, let me see. Jara, no, they're Putumayo, no, actually Guaviare. Yeah. Okay, so they end up here and then place a base here. That costs them 1 resource. Okay, well, that was a fast turn. And it's the next card now. So this is the Unión Sindical Obrera. Let's see, the AUC would be first. And that is again a card which targets another faction. So we will roll if they do it. Yes, they will. Labor backs FARC. Shift 1 level toward active opposition in 2 cities other than Bogota. Let's see. It's 48. Labor unions suspected of a similar social agenda as that of the rebel guerrillas and therefore of collusion with them became frequent targets of right-wing paramilitary violence. The FARC and the ALN had maintained a strong presence around the oil refining town of Barrancabermeja in Santander, a hotbed of the powerful oil workers' union, Unión Sindical Obrera, USO. The AUC entered the area in 2001, killing 180 and displacing some 4,000, acts popularly seen as a continuation of efforts to suppress popular organizing in the town. AUC leader Carlos Castaño in 2003 sent a menacing email to the union declaring all USO leaders and the children of USO members to be military targets. Okay, so it says shift 1 level toward active opposition in 2 cities other than Bogota. So I'm pretty sure we find something about that in the flow chart. Here we go. Actually not. So I guess it's going to be a random. And that could be now really painful for the government. So this is 6, 3 and a 4. 6. No, it's actually 6, 3. That is Neva. Okay, that is not so bad. So I think Neva is this one here. So that goes to passive support. So the government loses one. And the other one would be then... Okay, that's a 6, a 3 and a 6 again. Okay, Neva is not possible, so the other one is Pasto. So overall, that wasn't so bad, only small cities. So they don't lose that many influence overall. So that was the AUC event, and then it's my operation. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to march basically here, because I want to keep that area at Huila, Tolima, and then probably also here, because I want to move, I guess, from here, from Meta East to there, so that I can take these guys and move in here. On the I don't know, this is such a great idea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, we have absolute control over this area, so I think we can take a few we can take a few of these guerrillas and move them here to Meta East. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place these two and this one and well, that might actually be enough for now. Yes, I think that's fine for me right now. I think I'm going to place only these 4 in this area. Yeah, and I think I will also take one from here, from Pastor. So he's going to be activated. And another one here from Neva. And they will all move into this area. And then just to protect the base a little better, I think I'm going to take... I think I'm going to place another one of these guys in here. And I think he's activated, but I'm not sure. No, actually not. If the moving guerrillas, I thought it has to be the guerrillas in this area, but only if the moving guerrillas plus cubes exceed 3, then they would have been activated. But it's okay like that. So they're not activated. So that means, yeah, we got to pay 2 now. And this is it then. We could do a march action, an extort action. And I'm thinking about doing that. I will extort here, I guess. And that gives me then 1 resource back. So that allows me now to rally here in the next phase and maybe place a base there, which is, I guess, a good thing. Okay. So let's see. This is now this card here, Sequestrados. So first ones will be the cartels. And let's see if they do, no, actually there is the second op symbol here, so they will definitely ignore this event. They're gonna do a rally action as usual. So let's see where they're gonna place their guerrilla, and that is 3, a 3, and a 1. Arauca, Bogotá East, West, Portomayo, Guaviare, Meta West, Huila. So they place a base here in Huila, Tolima. Okay, and so they are now doing better and better. We might think it's a good idea to do something against them pretty soon, otherwise they will be too strong. And I think if they fulfill the victory conditions at the beginning of the last propaganda card, we will actually lose that. No matter how good we are. Okay, so the government, they will now play this card here. Sequestrados, I guess. And this is 32. Colombian media constantly reminded the populace that kidnappings were garnering hundreds of millions of dollars for the FARC and other groups. Public outcry grew under Pastrana as negotiations with FARC failed to end the scourge, and regular radio messages from loved ones to hostages further broadcasted the trauma. Okay, and fed up with hostage taking. Shift 2 spaces from neutral or passive opposition to passive support. This is not so good for me. So basically it is this one here. The other one is, I think, not possible. Okay, so the government will gain 2 support, and I will lose 2. And I think there is no other space where we have neutral or passive opposition. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is nowhere the case. Nope. Nope. Okay. Yeah. So that was the end of that turn. And now let's see the next one. Okay, here we are. This is now a propaganda card. Yeah, there were a few cards left, and just an explanation. We removed 12 cards from the deck at the beginning of the game. You always have to remove 12 cards so that you never know which cards are still in the deck. You have always a slightly different deck, usually. Okay, so this is now the last card. That's pretty cool. It's always good to have a last card. That might be helpful. So what happens is, it's the AUC again at the end. What will they do? Can they place a base anywhere? Nope. Are they in half of spaces with FARC bases? Well, let's see. Let's check that. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces with FARC bases, and the AUC is actually in 1, 2 of them. So they are not. So they will actually march to one space. A department or city with a FARC piece, a FARC base if possible, and no ASC guerrillas. Fists or ASC guerrillas stay underground with all adjacent ASC guerrillas except one each space with an ASC base or any FARC piece. So first we're going to ask ourselves, is it possible for them to move at all? Well, they cannot move here. Well, actually they could, but they have to leave 1 here. So they can move. They cannot, because this is the last one with their FARC pieces. Also here they can't move. Here they also cannot move. Up there they could, but there is no target for them. And they have... Well, actually they will have a target. They could enter the city of Pasto. That is actually possible. A department or city with a FARC piece and no ASC guerrillas. Exactly. So that would be actually the city of Pasto. That's where they will move now. And they will do this with all ASC guerrillas. So we have a real war now in this city here. No more hotel rooms. Everything is filled with AUC guerrillas. And this guy stays here in the jungle. Okay, so... yeah, a little weird. So that's... And then, wait a second. We got then, after March, we have an extort action, and they can do this up here. And by the way, they paid 1 for the movement, and they can extort there, so they're even. And that was their... Wait a second. Damn, I made a mistake here. Of course, they simply do the... they will simply do the event. The executing faction moves using its to march priority from where it has the most guerrillas as much as possible with active guerrillas. Okay. So let's see. First let's read the event. That's 53. Here we are. The AUC, as of 2004, reportedly fielded up to 14 state-of-art helicopters and a dozen small planes. AUC Chief Castaño in 2001 claimed to have loaned helicopters to the Cali cartel. Witnesses reported army helicopters deploying AUC fighters to new regions or supplying them with ammunition and medications while on terror operations. Some charged that troops wearing AUC armbands in 2003 parachuted from military aircraft into the region of Arauca to conduct a massacre. So it's criminal air force. Insurgent access to small aircraft. An insurgent faction moves 1 or 2 guerrillas between any 2 departments and flips them underground. Okay, so it says now here they moves using its to march priority from where it has the most guerrillas as much as possible with active guerrillas. Okay, so they will move from here. Question is now where? To a department with a FARC piece, a FARC base if possible, and no AUC guerrillas. Okay, so let's roll the die here. Oh, there are not so many possible. It's only these 3. So, okay, that will be here then Meta East. They will move there with these 2 AUC pieces. They are now underground. So there's now really a party. There's everybody, every faction is in this area. By the way, same here in Huila Tolima. Okay, and that was then the event. And then finally it's my last possible operation here. And as far as I know, if it's the final propaganda card, player operations limited and no sweep or march. So I cannot do a march action here. And I think a limited operation means I can only do this operation that I want to do a single time. Okay, yes, so this limited operation means we can only do this in one space and we have no special operation. So let's see, where do we want to do that? I guess I'm simply going to do one rally operation and I'm going to place a base here in Huila Tolima. Okay, and I guess this is it then. Yeah. So we're gonna pay 1 and we gain another victory point. Okay. And now we come to the last propaganda card. And well, we managed to avoid that any other faction fulfilled its victory conditions. So right now we don't lose. Then we check government control and FARC control. And let's see, this one here is government controlled. That one is government controlled. Again, I'm only placing this in the areas that are kind of interesting. That one here would be government controlled. Also that city. Let's see. This one is also government controlled. No, Yes, it is. Yeah. And I guess this is it then. Okay, and what about the sabotage actions? Well, there is nothing. Fire control is not that interesting, by the way. No sabotage. The resources, well, the government, they gain the LOCs, which is 30 plus 8, so they gain 39. So that would be 57, 87. And the insurgents gain their bases, so I would gain 7, which brings me to 31. And the AUC is at 4 bases, so that's 36 then. They would gain 27, which is more than it is actually possible, so I simply place them here at 99. I don't know if they would start again, but that is not, doesn't matter anymore. Okay, the cartels have all the money in the world. So, and no shipments, civic action. Okay, and that's now a problem because actually, and this is good for me, the government, they could do now civic actions in the areas they control, but they can't do it in these departments simply because there is no police. And you need, I think you need troops and police to do that. Well, let me see. Here. In cities or departments that have support in government-controlled cities or in departments that have both troops and police. Okay, so yeah, so they cannot do it in these two departments, which is definitely good for me, but they can do it in these cities here. So if they spend 3 and also 3 here, they gain overall 2 more victory points, which is not so amazing, but it's a start. Well, actually they had to pay 6. Okay. Yeah, that's, and they also cannot do it here in Putumayo. Okay, then we can nowhere agitate because there's nothing under our control which doesn't have active opposition. And election is not important. Elite backing. Well, that could happen now. In a non-opposition space, let's see what they say. They cannot place a base, but place guerrillas at all FARC bases, then at AUC bases, then randomly. Okay, it has to be a non-opposition space. So I guess they're going to place them up here, and it doesn't matter. Okay, and then it's well, this redeployment thing, which is not interesting actually, and so is that. So I think we're done here. The interesting point was actually the support phase, where they could do once again civic actions and agitation. Okay, So now we have to calculate the final victory margin, but I'm the winner simply because I'm the only one who fulfills the victory conditions. So yeah. I guess I'm fine here. I don't have to calculate this. The cartels are really close to their victory conditions. They only needed 2 more bases. Well, okay, the AUC wasn't that bad. 4 more bases, but they couldn't make it actually. They had to destroy, well, at least 2 of mine and then build their 2 bases. Okay. So in the end it was a clear victory. I think we can say that. And well, few words about the game. Basically, it's a fantastic game. I really do enjoy it a lot. It's a very good game. Components are great. The map looks fantastic. I love it. It's big. It's colorful. It just looks great. And it's also, the board is designed very well because you can see very easily how the victory conditions are fulfilled. You got always these markings here and here, for example. You can see just one look and you see how many bases everyone has and how the AUC does compared to the FARC and all these things. So that's pretty cool. I think the game really shows the theme. It's a very thematic game in my opinion, with all these cards and yeah, it really, I mean, you really get the impression that there are these 4 factions fighting each other, and there are, even though there are just cubes, it feels in some way, I think it doesn't make a difference. If there would be chits here with guerrillas or whatever, or with tanks or so, there would not be a big difference. I think that there is an abstraction is perfectly fine. You can see how these colorful schemes, how they develop, how these patterns develop, and it looks just great. You can clearly see, okay, this is all controlled by the government. Here we have the FARC, here is the AUC, and that's cool. And then there is these things can change, and it's yeah, it looks good, and it's yeah, it captures this theme very well, I think. Doesn't feel too abstract in my opinion. I also like the fact that every faction has a different victory condition. I mean, the insurgent factions, I guess they play all not too different, because at least they have the same actions more or less. So, but on the other hand, I think there is a difference between the cartels, for example. I think they try to build bases mostly, while the FARC tries to fight in general and tries to gain influence. So even between the insurgent factions, there are pretty significant differences. the game plays fine solo. If you play the government, it's a real challenge. And remember, the game was first designed to be played solo only as a government player. But of course, I mean, at least for me, it was obvious that I wanted to play also as the other factions. It's simply interesting. And so we needed a government flowchart. And, well, there were a few attempts. This one looked pretty good, actually, I think. Still, it seems very easy for me to win that. And it's very hard to win as a government player, but it seems pretty easy to win as a FARC player. I don't know how bad it is as the cartels or the AUC. I could imagine it's pretty hard for the AUC. I think it might be not so hard for the cartels. But I'm not sure about that. So I guess this, I think it needs a little more playtesting. Maybe two things are important here. I think what I did at the beginning, I think for the first, I don't know, until the second propaganda card or so, I played it that way that the government always does the event if it's possible for them. And I think that makes things much harder for the government and too predictable for the non-player, for the player. So then I started with rolling dice. So if the targeted faction of the event is not the executing faction, then you roll a die and the event will only be triggered on a 3 or higher. And I think that makes sense. Maybe even more. I'm not sure about that. It's hard to say. Maybe you should do it on a 4 or higher. I don't know. I think it was definitely a problem here that the government didn't do a lot of operations until, I don't know, the second command card or so. Actually, the second propaganda card or so. The government, I think they didn't even bring their troops into play. Not one of them. Until the first or second propaganda card. I'm not sure anymore. It might have been the second one, actually. And, of course, that makes them much less dangerous. So I think if you play with that rule, with that rolling earlier, maybe even with that 4+ die roll rule, it's gonna be harder for the player, because then the government would do simply more operations, and also the other factions, of course. Another problem was this AUC faction, which was kind of stuck here in the jungle for, I think, a whole all the rounds between 2 propaganda phases. So that was a lot. I mean, that was about a quarter of the game. They were just stuck here in the jungle and did nothing, except for maybe a few events. And that was actually a problem with this flowchart here. And there is there's a thread on BGG where they try to change that in a way that I'm not absolutely sure how they did it, but it was something here between these with these alternatives. I think it was maybe like march, and if they don't march, it's not If none, then they go to rally, and if none, they pass. But if they don't march, they go to attack. And if they don't attack, they do a terror action, and if they don't do this, then they rally. I think they did it that way. Could have been also the other way: march, terror, attack, and rally. But basically, they changed the alternatives to the march action a little bit. And that would have been definitely a significant change, because then the AOC would have not been stuck here. And we've seen what happens if they start fighting the FARC. I mean, I took some bad hits after they started their war there. I've lost, I don't know, about 5 points or so due to terror actions and assassinations of the AUC. So they can be pretty dangerous. Yeah, okay, these are thoughts we have to consider, I think, and we should try to improve this flow chart a little more, but it's a pretty good start. A few other things are a little vague here, I guess. Not sure. I think it was, for example, with the sweep. It's not so clear how many you take if you sweep. And also with the deployment. But I guess overall it's a really good start, and yeah, it makes fun to use that flow chart. So yeah, and competition is not everything. I mean, it can also be simply a very enjoyable game, and it's a nice it's nice to play a different faction than always the government. So it's good. Okay, so yeah, I enjoyed it. I know it might not have been that interesting to watch. This is definitely not one of these games where, as a viewer, you have your intense moment and you say, whoa, interesting, and this is it. This is one of these games where you play, yeah, well, not so much for the tension, but for these long-term developments. And it's really a joy to see how things change on the board. That's great. And of course, you also have to like flowcharts. I mean, if you're a solo player and you don't like flowcharts, then this is definitely not the right game for you. I could compare this game to Labyrinth, for example. It's also a game by Volker Runke, and well, some way similar theme. Not exactly. I mean, it plays pretty different actually, because in Labyrinth you only have 2 factions, and you don't use your troops that much as you do here. And yeah, more about how what the world thinks about you. If your reputation in the world is high as a US player, you have better chances to do your things. If it is low, it's harder. You want to influence the other countries, get them on your side. So it's a little different, but it also has some things in common. But one important thing here is, in Labyrinth, if you want to play that solo, at least for me, I often came to the point where it was pretty repetitive. I wanted to influence some regions, and then the these terror organizations, they did their jihad action, and it always was more or less the same. So I felt sometimes like I was in a loop. I did my thing, they did their reaction, I did my thing, they did their reaction, and it was always the same. I mean, I reacted to their reaction, they reacted to my reaction. So there was this kind of weird loop, and things became boring after a while. Here it's different because you have 4 factions. So if you kind of start fighting always a faction, and you take let's say I don't know, you take a department and then they try to take a department, and you sweep, for example, and activate the guerrillas, and then they rally and they go underground again, and then you sweep again and activate them, they rally, and so on. But it's not that easy. For example, if you're a government player, you have to take care about other things. The cartels might become more and more, they could get more and more powerful while you're fighting the FARC. Or if you're the FARC, maybe the AUC starts eliminating your other bases. So the danger that you kind of get stuck in some loop, which originates from playing against a flowchart, is not there here, because you can not only concentrate against one enemy, but you have 3 enemies, and they interact with each other. So that makes it much more interesting, in my opinion, as a solo game. Okay, well, that's basically all I can say for now. I enjoyed it a lot. I hope you did it at least a bit. If you're still watching, I think you do. I'm gonna do these other games too one day. Cuba Libre, Distant Plain. We will see Fire in the Lake pretty soon. And, well, I hope for more, actually. So, yeah, hope to see you in my next video. Until then, bye.